Good evening. The Charter Township of Plymouth Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019 will come to order. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heidi.
Here.
Treasurer Clinton.
Here.
Trustee Kermy.
Here.
Trustee Dorshevitz.
Here.
Clerk Vorva here. Trustee Dempsey.
Present.
Trustee Hyman.
Here.
All present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We're going to skip the firefighters presentation until we get some firefighters over here. They're working at the station, which is good. We want to hear that. So we're going to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Aaron Sprague, for the Executive Director of WTUA, would you like to lead us in the pledge tonight? Of course you would.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Aaron. Tonight, item C is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move for the approval of the agenda for Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019.
Motion's been made by Clerk Vorva. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Heitman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next is item D, approval of the consent agenda. Any comments or questions from the board?
Question, Fire Department monthly report. Mutual aid, once again, 14-4, mutual aid given versus received. I had a question, Chief. Canton, we gave mutual aid 7 times and received it once. You had mentioned that there was parts of Canton that basically we're the only ones that go to because we have trained paramedics.
So, yeah, let me clarify that. So, Canton is surrounded by 4 fire departments: Westland, Plymouth Township, Superior Township, and Van Buren. Of those 4 fire departments, Westland Fire Department and Plymouth Township are the only paramedics. Superior Township and Van Buren do not provide paramedic services when inside of their fire department. Westland Fire Department is so busy, most of the time the Canton Fire Department has to provide mutual aid to them. So when it comes time to providing paramedic services, we're the only person they can call, because typically Westland's too busy to help them, so they have to call us, or they have to downgrade their services for mutual aid.
Do we know if any of the 7 mutual aids given for the past month fit that criteria?
I would have to guess almost all of them fit that criteria. A lot of times Canton has to call us because they're in Westland. Now, Canton has increased their staff, but they're still in the hiring process. And I don't know if they've hired all of them that they mean to hire. I'm not sure at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions on item D? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Heitman.
I move we approve the consent agenda as written.
Motion's been made by Trustee Heitman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Clerk Vorva. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we're going to recognize our Plymouth Township firefighters in honor of International Firefighters Day, which is May 4th. And this is our last meeting before May 4th, so we would like to recognize our hardworking Plymouth Township firefighters at this time. And if they could come, we have a few firefighters with us tonight, so if you could come forward. And we need your name for the record.
Adam Gwynn.
Adam Gwynn.
Nolan Gilo.
Nolan Gilo. Chris Mack. Chris Mack. Okay, very good. I will not read the proclamation. I know you will be heartened to hear that, but this is our annual proclamation in honor of International Firefighters Day, which is May 4th. So may the 4th be with you. There you go.
Oh,
congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right.
That was off.
All right, very good. We're going to move on now to public comments and questions, limited to 3 minutes. As you know, this is not your only opportunity during the evening to comment on public matters or agenda items. There will be another opportunity at the end of the evening. So at this point, does anybody want to have any comments or questions for the board? John Stewart, are you?
John, could you push the button on there yeah, there you go. To where the green light shows up.
Yes. Green light. John Stewart, 35-year resident of 14956 Maplewood. Same house and same office on Main Street for 35 years. When I had spoken with the supervisor earlier this week, I indicated to him I wanted to bring 3 pieces of paper to you. I was pleased that my good friend Susan Bondi asked me at the last meeting, you're all about community involvement. What can we recommend to the police and fire and the township employees? And I said, fine, I'll bring you pieces of paper. On May 15th at PARC, P-A-R-C, the head of the very successful Pure Michigan program in the MEDC, David Lorenz will be our speaker. There's only seating capacity for over 110, and more than 66 have already paid, including our supervisor. I will be running the meeting like an Economic Club of Detroit meeting. It'll also be a Socratic meeting, and I'll be the one that has control of that microphone. I'm encouraging you to come. It's a $20 luncheon with Jeff Zack Catering, an excellent, my wife was in charge of the Michigan menu for that day. So I can't thank Sue Brams enough for putting this out in the e-newsletter. So we're all aware that we're bringing in, and there's people from Southeast Michigan that are coming to this meeting because of David Lorenz, Travel Michigan, and they are now sponsoring that wonderful Thursday night old man's program called Under the Radar that I like to watch. Physical fitness, mental fitness, and emotional fitness go hand in hand. 40 consecutive years of our Plymouth Y run. June 16th, my 4-year-old granddaughter has been signed up for the quarter mile. So we're going to do it, and I encourage all of you, and I have given you a form. It's my understanding that with recovered knees, Trustee Dorashevich shall be jogging.
Yeah, but there's no 10K this year?
Sure.
There's no 10K on here.
No. No, you're right. There is no 10K. Now, Counselor Bennett has been known to meet the challenge of physical exercise, so I'm hoping he might, it might appear that morning.
Yeah, I'm in if you're in.
And finally,
He'll need a golf
I
cart.
believe that all across Michigan, it's Pure Michigan, the 2 patriotic concerts that we have on June 29 and July 4, the Michigan Philharmonic and the Plymouth Community Band. We would like to invite, and I'm hoping, I think our Chief Titterington and Dan Phillips, I know, we would like to thank first responders to also appear. There are almost 200 veterans that will be in front of the stage on Thursday night, July 4th. Being part of that generation, the Vietnam veterans come out in great numbers. So it's my hope that we will go onward and forward and do some things in community involvement. We need to calmly sit and talk about what's going on in our wonderful community, because all you need to do is sit down and watch the television.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, let's move on to new business. Item F1 is the Watua swap agreement. This is a sanitary sewer service agreement by and among the City of Plymouth, Plymouth Township, Canton Township, the Western Townships Utilities Authority, and the County of Wayne. And with us tonight is Aaron Sprague, who is the Executive Director of Watua, and will explain this in more detail.
And I'll try to keep it brief. Nobody wants to hear too much about this dirty subject. Before you tonight, you have a sanitary sewer service agreement. This is the penultimate step to formally terminating service with Wayne County. There was one prior step, a similar agreement between Northville and Northville Township, which was executed in late fall of 2018. You may recall from several years ago when we started talking about terminating our service with Wayne County, one of the issues that was particular to Plymouth Township, and that is the intermingling of the sewers between the city and the township. And back a couple of years ago, we talked about a few different options for overcoming that. Physical separation, potential membership in WTOA. There were several options that we discussed, and one of those was what I termed a swap agreement. And that is, we've got, WTOA has 4 areas that are east of our facilities that connect directly to the Wayne County sewer system. And the city of Plymouth has an area that connects to the Plymouth Township sewer system and ultimately to WTOA. So essentially, what we're proposing to do is trade the flows from those various areas. There are 2 areas in Plymouth Township and 2 areas in Canton Township that will continue to go on to Wayne County as if they were City of Plymouth flow. And the area of the City of Plymouth that contributes flow to the Plymouth Township sewer will be sent to YCOA for treatment as if it was Plymouth Township flow. This agreement addresses that and one other issue that I'll get into in a moment. But the critical components are the city will remain responsible for the character of flow that originates within the city. Township staff will not be responsible to going to city users to enforce sewer use ordinances or that type of thing. And similarly, township staff, the townships will remain responsible for the character of flow that originates in the townships. The city will remain responsible for the sewers within the city limits. The township won't be assuming any additional O&M requirements for those sewers. And again, the townships will remain responsible for O&M of their sewers within their township boundaries. Each community will remain responsible for billing and collection of payments from their existing customers. As far as the customers are concerned, this isn't a change at all. And similarly with IWC charges, the township will remain responsible for collection and payment of IWC charges in those areas of the township still tributary to Wayne County and GLWA, and the city will remain responsible for its IWC charges. The second component of this agreement is permanent assignment of capacity in the Wayne County system. WTOA has been marketing this capacity for longer than I've been at WTOA, which is almost 18 years now. And we've been trying to find somebody that was interested in acquiring this capacity, number one, and compensating us for that acquisition as well. This agreement will assign 11 cubic feet per second of our capacity in the Wayne County system to the City of Plymouth, and the City of Plymouth will compensate WTOA for that capacity. In addition, the City of Plymouth has a first right of refusal for 2 CFS of additional capacity, but that has to be exercised by December of this year, December 31st of this year. We didn't want it dragging on indefinitely. This agreement has been approved as to form by Wayne County staff and council. It was approved by Canton Township on April 9th. It was approved by the City of Plymouth on April 1st. It was approved by WTOA last night, and this is the last step. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So without this swap agreement, we would have had to physically separate our sewer system from the city and vice versa. Is that correct?
That was one of the primary options, yes. There are other potential options that are less feasible than that. That was the most feasible. It was also the most costly.
Yeah, because my notes indicate that if we had to do sewer separation, it would have, and these are very rough estimates, but they're serious, $8 million for the township, $4 million for the city, and at least $1 million for Watua.
Yes.
Not to mention, we would have had to install new sewer lines along Sheldon Road, Ann Arbor Road, and I think Joy Road to some extent, but at least Sheldon and Ann Arbor roads would have been torn up and new sewer line would have to be dug, so that would have been extremely disruptive to traffic and pedestrians.
Yes, that's definitely one of the large benefits of this agreement is we're avoiding upwards of $15 to $20 million in capital cost, not to mention the disturbance of deep sewer construction down either Ann Arbor Road or Joy Road. Likely that would be west of Haggerty, likely sewer construction, again, deep, east of Haggerty on Joy Road and on Sheldon Road as well. In addition, there was the potential for permanent pump stations, which would have included or added additional O&M. And not only are we avoiding that 15 to 20 or $25 million, we're also getting money through this agreement for the assignment of capacity.
And then this would resolve all outstanding issues, challenges from Wayne County with respect to our separation in
This is the
2017.
last step before we get to that point. We've actually negotiated that agreement with the county, but it's been on hold until we finish these two agreements between the townships.
Okay.
But this is the last hurdle before we can execute that agreement.
All right. Any comments or questions by the board? Any comments or questions?
The only comment, this is a great solution. I mean, if you think about all the potential outcomes we could have had, this was, I mean, I know there's a lot of people involved, but Aaron, I'll give you all the credit because it's extremely creative.
I think
saved
this
us a ton of money, got us out of the contract with Wayne County. And by the way, we're saving millions of dollars, diverting our flow to Ypsilanti. So this is tremendous.
I think this is a true example of a win-win. People talk about that a lot, but the Plymouth Township benefits, WTOA benefits, the city of Plymouth benefits. It's a definite win-win.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree. Just to make sure that we're clear on the record. So there's no additional fiscal impact to Plymouth Township, no cost increases, no budget impact from this agreement.
Associated with this, no.
Chuck?
This is an outstanding example of what rarely happens in government, an optimum solution that gets made between many municipalities. So thank everybody who worked on this great job. I have a couple of technical questions. Number one, section 102 and 103
Yes.
in the southeast corner, that is currently going to Great Lakes right now as we speak?
Yes,
Okay, because the connections are down. That's always been the case.
correct.
So it remained connected and never went to YCUA or Watua and YCUA.
Back in the 90s when WTOA was constructed, there was a concern about a shortage of funds. The bonds were issued before the design drawings were completed. And there were certain portions of the construction that were postponed, not knowing how much money would actually be available. Historically, we've called those the unrestricted areas. They're not restricted by WTOA facilities. They go directly to Wayne County. In the late 90s, we did a project which controls those flows but does not redirect them unless they exceed our contractual capacity. So we have a pump station located at Eccles Road and Joy that if the flows get too high, it redirects some of that flow back to our facilities and then can go to WTOA. But day to day, those flows go directly into the county system.
Okay, and Jack, your question about extra costs, there will be an expansion of the retention basin that has to be built by Watua as a result of this.
As a result of the termination of the service agreement with Wayne County, yes, not as a result of this agreement.
Where will that be built?
It will be in Canton Township. We will have some limited construction at the north end on Joy Road at our Middle Rouge facility, but the bulk of the construction will be at our Lower Rouge facility at Michigan and Haggerty.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Anybody in the public on this one?
Ready for
All
a
right,
motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Where is it? Okay. I move to approve Resolution 2019-04-23-43, authorizing the supervisor and clerk to sign the sanitary sewer service agreement by and among the City of Plymouth, Plymouth Township, Canton Township, Western Townships Utilities Authority, and the County of Wayne.
Motion's been made by Trustee Kermey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Heitman. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Kermey.
Yes.
Trustee Dempsey.
Yes.
Trustee Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Motion carries.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Next up is item F2. This is an IFT abatement request from Wabasto for the facility at Schoolcraft Business Park. We have various representatives here tonight, so I don't know who wants to go first. We will need your name for the record.
My name is Jamie Roth. I'm with Hillside Investments. I'm the developer of the project. Our tenant is Wabasto. Some representatives are here to talk a little bit about the project. The facility is approximately 290,000 square feet. It will employ approximately 450 new jobs. They will be completing some light assembly for sunroof and roofing systems. They're currently tenants in Plymouth Township, and they look forward to expanding.
You've been before the Planning Commission as well?
We have full site plan approval. All the engineering plans are done. We've submitted to the various agencies for all approvals.
What's the total investment?
The project is about $45 million between construction costs and improvements from Wabasto.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Bob?
Just a general comment, and I did support this on the Planning Commission, but I'll bring it back up during trustee comments because these two things that are on the agenda tonight, in both cases, these developers just blew out the trees, and in this case there were how many? I forget the number of trees, but my point is that I would like to. There's nothing we can do about it now, but I'd like us to consider a woodlands ordinance that would stop that from happening in the future. So, do you have any comment to that effect? That has been not well received by the public.
You're talking about clear cutting, correct?
They clear cut it. They just blew them out, right?
I think a project of this size, we do have to cut down the trees. We do replace them. We follow the ordinance as far as replacing. We've gone above the ordinance to help promote Plymouth Township parks by planting a significant number of trees, about 160, instead of putting them on our property, putting them in the parks.
But I think in this particular case, though, and Laura, maybe you have some input into that. You should have. Wasn't there a permit required before they did that?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Laura Ha, Planning Director. As part of the planning process, you typically, when a site is a greenfield and then redeveloped with a new development, the standard procedure is to go through the Planning Commission prior to doing any work on site. However, we do have policies in place to allow for that. So for instance, in this case, the applicant did receive a grading permit. They did receive from the township, and that included the soil erosion permit from Wayne County, as well as an escrow in case the trees that were removed, if the developer walked away, we would be able to, as a township, replant that area. So it's maybe something that we haven't seen as much, but other communities like Novi, it's pretty standard.
So Laura, they gave us a check for $50,000 plus or minus for tree escrow, correct?
Correct.
And then they're also providing us with 160 trees or 160, enough money to buy 160 trees. How does that work?
Correct. The applicant has stated that they prefer to, in fact, plant those additional 160 or so trees on township designated property. So for instance, in Township Park, per the board's direction, at some point this year, that would be ideal for those growing seasons.
And they were going to plant those instead of having us do it. They volunteered to do the planting.
Correct, which they're doing the heavy lifting as well, which is an extra cost that now the township does not incur.
That means digging the holes.
Right.
Correct.
And planting them correctly.
Yes.
Did they make this offer before or after it came to light that prior approvals were not obtained?
It was made before to the township and also the chair of the Planning Commission.
then why was there this need to proceed without prior approval to take down all these trees?
The applicant did make the grading permit application with the building department, which included the Wayne County approval to remove the trees and do a rough grade on the site, which the property owner, if they do have those applications set in place, they can technically do on their property, even if they don't plan to build, a new structure.
So if I had information from the building department that they proceeded before getting approval, that would be incorrect?
I think that there was some confusion that week on what was needed for the application, but in the end, the building department had the forms that they needed.
And is Hillside the property owner?
Yes, we're in a joint venture with Hugo Benzig and as a
What was the last entity?
joint venture with the company Hugo Benzig for the ownership of the property.
So you currently are a co-owner of the site?
Couple questions.
Just to clarify, Laura, if I heard you correctly, I believe that you've said that they did act in alignment with the policies of the building department, and that information that has been released was incorrect?
I think that there was some initial confusion over the application they were submitting with the building department. I am not involved in that process itself. From what I understand, that was resolved and that the applicant is within their right to then clear and grade the site, provided that they had that application and that escrow established. And that is separate than having no approvals and clearing a site.
It's my understanding that they had both a tree removal permit and a soil erosion permit from Wayne County by the end of business day on the Friday on which they were removing trees. They were temporarily shut down at my request, not the building director. I called the building director and had them shut down because we didn't think they had permits. We contacted them. They had all the necessary permits.
Okay.
I was told by the end of the day. There have been there wasn't one media report where I was not interviewed. Staff was interviewed. I'm not sure if they knew the full story, but it was in the paper and it speaks for itself.
Okay.
Couple questions, comments for me. The first one is, you currently have facilities, Webasto currently has facilities in Plymouth Township. Do the other facilities manufacture the roofing systems as well? I guess my leading question would be, is this going to displace what one of the facilities is currently doing?
Okay, so I think we have somebody here now from Webasto.
Yeah, my name is Edis Stokovic from Boston Roof Systems. And to answer your questions, we do have a facility in Plymouth, and this is all new business, and it's going to be expansion in Southeast Michigan.
So what does the current facility currently manufacture?
Convertible roofs.
Okay.
Now, according to the Detroit News article this afternoon, you're going to be making components for Ford and Chrysler products?
For the multiple customers, yes, that's correct.
Multiple customers.
You have the former Carmen facility, is that correct?
That I don't know.
You don't know? All right. Yes. All right. They were in the convertible systems also.
Could be.
Another German company. Carmen, as in Carmen Gia. That first name. But anyway.
Do they all know each other?
Another family-owned company in Germany.
Soccer.
So do we have to have a public hearing for this, or
No.
not required? Okay.
What we created the IDD, which required
That was
a
the public
public hearing.
All right.
And this
Thanks.
required that we notify all the taxing units ahead of time so that they could be here to discuss this. And that was done by both certified mail and direct mail.
Well, do we want to have them tell us something or whatever and then ask questions, or?
We're asking the questions now. I mean, what do you?
You don't want to introduce your company, what you do, instead of us asking all the questions? Do you want to give a pitch for 5 minutes or 2 minutes? Would that be more efficient?
We've provided the board with a lot of background information about Wabasto. They have a website. I don't know what your comfort level is tonight. Would you like to just tell us a little bit about Wabasto and more about what you're going to be doing at this facility?
Sure, I can do just a brief introduction. Webasto is a global tier 1 supplier that's in the business of providing roof systems, convertible and sunroof systems for the cars and trucks. In addition, we have the e-mobility division that provides the components for the electrical vehicles. We are looking to expand. We have won quite a bit of new business, and now we have reached our capacity in North America and in Southeast Michigan in particular. And we were looking to expand our manufacturing capacity. We have looked in several different opportunities and zeroed into this particular site as being very strategic for us in terms of location of our customers and our supply base. We're looking to bring about 400 jobs, new jobs into this facility. As all of the business that go into new facilities, a new business.
What does it mean to be a tier 1 supplier?
Tier 1 means that we're a direct supplier to OEMs, Ford, Chrysler, Daimler, any of the car manufacturers.
As opposed to a supplier that supplies to a tier 1.
Correct. Our suppliers would be tier 2 suppliers.
They ship to the assembly plant is what tier 1 means. Usually.
I knew that.
Oh, okay.
The 440 jobs are new jobs. These are not jobs that are going to just be moved from somewhere else.
Yeah, that's correct.
We also have, in our agenda packs tonight, we have the letter of support from the MEDC. I understand that you were just awarded $2.7 million yesterday by the state of Michigan, which is directly tied to the anticipated job creation at this facility.
That's correct. We got approved that this morning, actually,
Okay.
in Lansing. It's a performance-based grant, depending on the job creation.
And I know that Wayne County, Dave Schreiber is here tonight. He's one of the economic development directors from Wayne County. You don't need to say anything unless you want to. I don't want to shut you down, but I know that Wayne County has also indicated a letter of support. This matter has also been made it into the Detroit News today, Crane's business, and there was also a story on Channel 7. So there's a great deal of excitement and interest regarding this project.
Yeah, and we are very excited to expand our presence here in Southeast Michigan and in Plymouth in particular.
Kurt, I just have a couple more questions and comments. This property, the area is currently zoned technical and research, and under our ordinance, you're allowed in that zoning light manufacturing. Could anybody argue that your creation of these roof components and sunroofs, et cetera, is heavy manufacturing or industrial versus light manufacturing?
No, it is light manufacturing. It's a light assembly of the components, as most of the components are provided from our suppliers, and we do add value by assembling into a design that we have created for our customers.
Okay. All right. Couple more things, and to keep going.
Okay.
Wabasto currently has, this would be their 4th IFT certificate. 2 have expired, 1 is active. Jerry, I'm going to ask this of you because part of the requirement of this is that an annual report be filed on the status of the job creation, the amount spent, et cetera. Historically, Wabasto has never filed those reports with us for any of the current certificates. Maybe they're to blame, maybe we're to blame for not actively requesting them. But if this is approved, I would ask that you be proactive in getting those annual reports.
Certainly, I noted that myself, that they have not.
I think as part of MEDC approving today's incentive, they absolutely have to do this now.
Yeah.
As it's part of the state requirement. So
Yep.
I think it'll be a little bit easier then for them to come back and report to us.
Okay, and then two more technical points. I was looking at the application. When we approved the IDD, didn't we approve 3 parcels?
3 parcels.
On the application, there's 2 parcels listed, and one of the parcels is incomplete. I don't know if that's going to come back and bite us, but if you look at, I don't know if you can bring it up, Bob, the actual application itself.
Which page, Mark?
Is it page 88 of 2019?
Well, I think master automatic is the other piece.
87, page
87?
87. Yeah, see, you went a little too far. You'll go up. See right where it shows the parcel numbers?
Yeah.
One ends in 720. The other one doesn't have the 703 behind it. So that second parcel number is incomplete.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. And I didn't know if there was a third parcel number or not because we approved 3 parcels during the IDD.
The third one is not part of.
Is not part of the
Not
IFT.
part of Webasto. It's part of master automatic, which is already doing
Okay.
business there.
Does this have to be corrected?
Yes, it does, and that's a
Okay.
good catch.
All right. And then my last catch is in the resolution itself. It talks about an exemption, and it says, quote, for the land and new building. Land cannot be abated, so my recommendation is in the resolution, we scratch for the land and only say for the new building,
Land improvements are okay, but not the land.
not the land itself, correct?
Can we make that land improvements?
That's what it was supposed to be.
Okay.
So it dropped off a word then. For the land improvements and new building? Is that
Yes.
after the word land?
Right.
Should
Yes.
be,
For the land improvements and new building.
Okay.
So to follow up on that, just before we leave that, so this contemplates a lease agreement. Is that legitimate under this request for tax relief? The lessor gets the tax abatement?
There's an agreement between the lessor and the lessee, and it specifically specifies that.
Who pays the taxes?
Who pays the taxes. Yeah.
and that's what's in the draft agreement. By the way, when do you expect to sign the lease? Obviously, before it goes to the state. So what's the date that you expect to sign the lease?
The lease is out for execution right now, just happened to be with the holidays and people's schedule.
Execution means it's in Europe for signature?
I believe, I'm not sure who's signing it from.
Well, he's the guy right there.
You
from
need,
West.
you guys need to speak up. I can
Yeah.
barely hear you.
Like Jamie was saying, the lease is out for execution as we speak, and due to the holidays and recent holidays, we were not able to execute and get it done for tonight's meeting.
I think the Germans have a different holiday schedule surrounding Easter than we do. They have several days off.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's a German thing.
Yeah. Couple of questions. Water bill, usually we request some type of certification from the treasurer that the water bills are current and their taxes are paid. Do we have any indication on their existing business?
For Webasto's existing business, yeah, they're all paid up. I did not check on this particular parcel of land, though.
Yeah, that's
did not
less
check.
important.
There's no improvements. So.
Well,
You
it's
still have to
property
pay taxes
tax,
on
but-
land, but
Oh, well, but that would be their arrangement.
All right, so that's good. Let's get back to the trees. I think trees are fantastic, but private property rights usually trump everything in Plymouth Township. It's important. The trees were predominantly black locusts, which are not really indigenous to this part of this country. And the trees are not, they would be considered scrub trees. They look nice, sort of, but these were not major trees that were cut down. Black locust is great. It makes fence posts that last decades. Extremely hard wood, great for firewood. But these are not. In fact, in the Sleeping Bear Dunes, they're cutting them out because they're not indigenous, and literally selling them or throwing them away because they want to be pure environmentally. So, but we do need to research some policy issues internally. I think we're premature jumping the gun on some of these things that are going on with Hillside and the other developer that's here tonight. We may need to put a little arm's length, and they need to hang in there. We want to move quickly, but we still need to be smart about it. But in this one, I think it worked out okay because the trees were scrub.
And not all the trees were taken down. There's quite a number that are still there, and they seem to be very tall trees. I don't know what species they are. I would just say that, and we'll have more of this discussion later, I think, but we all have to be mindful and strike a balance between private property rights, economic development, and the law, and make sure that I don't want to end up like Canton. I don't want to end up like Canton, where we're getting dragged through the mud as being unreasonable, as being not a place that you want to do business. They bought a lot of bad will. They got a lot of bad press, and I believe they're in court still with the folks that they've been feuding with over tree removal. They may be right, they may be wrong, but I don't think that they have approached it in a thoughtful way, and that's the kind of thing that we're trying to avoid. And that will come up again in the next few minutes with the other project, because we are pretty sore about how that one went down.
Yeah, and I agree with that sentiment. A balance between those interests is, definitely appropriate. I think, maybe not in this particular case, but just with respect to policy and possibly ordinance, what we want to do is we want to prevent a future developer from simply thumbing their nose at the township.
Yeah,
we really haven't had, until these, we've only had one other one that I remember where this happened. And
Which one was that?
the corner of Ann Arbor Road and Beck.
Yep.
Beck.
No,
There's a lot there. They cut down everything. They never did sell it. Where this building is sitting, we got a lot of criticism also because it was a clear cut. But the way the plan was developed was you really couldn't save the trees. And here the trees were valuable red oaks.
Which one are we talking about now?
Where this building is,
Well,
was
this
completely
building.
wooded.
This building, okay, yeah.
So we got some heat on that, but we haven't had this problem, and we've had 2 in 6 months. So something's changed. We need to go back and look at our internal stuff.
Well, we also had the residential project. I thought the one that you were talking about was at Ann Arbor Road and Ridge, across from Picnic Basket. Yeah. I mean, that was clear. That was completely clear cut. I don't know. That happened before I started here, but there was that still looks pretty bad.
It does, yeah, it does.
Okay, well, that's not their issue at this point. So any other questions or comments from the board?
Can you tell us what is your PPAP submission date, so I know when you're going to be in production? Or when's your production date?
We have several projects that are going to that facility.
First one. I'm trying to get an idea when the building will be up and equipped.
Yeah, we're planning to start putting equipment up by end of the year,
End of this year.
end of this year.
All right, that's pretty quick. Are you planning to hire temporaries in the summer, college students, to fill in for vacationing regular employees, which was a tradition in the Detroit area for a long time? It's disappeared, but a way for college students to earn their way through university.
Not to replace the temporary, we have the internship programs in the company that we hire the college students to gain experience working in the company.
Oh, those are people that want to become engineers.
Not just for engineers, for lots of different positions in the company.
Okay, so not a temporary summer substitute work program.
No, there is really no summer vacation, long vacations here in the States anymore. So people are taking a week and a few days here and there.
Okay.
Before we proceed, I would like to just hear from Wayne County very briefly about
Sure.
the county's position here.
Do we have two people here from Wayne County?
One, I believe.
One.
Dave Schreiber.
Dave,
Okay.
Yeah, Dave Schreiber. I'm the Business Development Manager for Wayne County Economic Development. You have in your packet a letter of support that I provided for this, reviewed by our Assistant County Executive and supported by that. I think that the thing that really stands out for me about this, I was thinking about the fact that you hear all this talk about, America is not competitive for manufacturing anymore. You're seeing it go everywhere else. And this really shows to me that, yes, we are indeed competitive. We've got to sharpen our pencils a little bit more to be competitive in this global marketplace. But I'm excited to see more good 400-plus manufacturing jobs come to our area. Adds to the diversity of our workforce and opportunities for our residents. We've got a lot of high end, a lot of low end. It's great to have that manufacturing middle in there as part of that. I used to work for Oakland County, so I'm actually very familiar with Webasto up in Rochester Hills. And I can tell you from years of experience and years of being in the community and doing economic development there, that they have always been thought of and seen as an excellent business resident in our community. I know the facility, know it's a great facility. The Rochester Hills people always tout it as one of the premier companies that they have in their community. So lastly, just supporting this project sends a real positive message to the business community that our community, our region, wants to see and wants to support more manufacturing jobs in our area. So I hope you support this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
thanks.
Back to the heavy manufacturing question. Is Webasto going to be doing any metal stamping in this operation?
No, we don't plan on doing any stamping.
All right, so all the stampings will be purchased somewhere else and imported or brought in.
Yeah, that's correct.
Purchase part.
Correct.
Could you comment a little bit on the technology being used there? I understand that these are being built to the very exacting specs of Webasto, which is based on some other European models. Do you want to elaborate on that? I'm just going by what you guys said at the Planning Commission meeting.
Which one? Facility?
The facility itself is a very energy efficient, new way of constructing buildings. Webasto is a standard of natural light, so the entire perimeter of the building has windows all the way around for all the employees, including 140 skylights, approximately. So they have very strict standards for the health of the employees, as well as the facility itself is fully air conditioned. The walls and the insulation they use on it's of higher standards than typical building codes. Everything from the way they treat their floors throughout the facility. It's immaculate operations.
Okay.
So let's come back to Wayne County and traffic, because we've had some residents complain about traffic today. Any comments on traffic control? Years ago, there was many more employees working there than today, but the last 20 years, it's gotten a little sparse. So is there any plan to do any traffic signal optimization or other activity at the corner of 5 Mile and Schoolcraft Road?
The current traffic plan is to keep all trucks north of Haggerty Road, or keep all trucks going southbound from Schoolcraft or eastbound, to keep them away from the 5 Mile roads.
But the traffic jam is also southbound and in the evening typically.
And I'm not a traffic engineer, but we have traffic engineers at the county, and as part of the permitting process, they take a look at the traffic impact of this specific project. They look at how many comes, what the hours are, and they working with the developer, produce a plan that minimizes the impact on the community of the new investment, new development.
So do you anticipate that the trucks, this is for you, Webasto, will be entering the freeway in Livonia along Schoolcraft, heading east towards Eccles Road?
Well, the two freeways they're planning on using is off of 96 in Livonia and also Ann Arbor Road off 275.
So you're going to enter 275 from Ann Arbor Road, not from Schoolcraft and looping around?
Probably more from Schoolcraft, but just
I would recommend that you consider the Schoolcraft entrance, which is kind of a sleeper that a lot of people don't know about. You go east on Schoolcraft, you loop over the freeway, and then you enter the freeway at 96 going west for a short distance, and then enter 275.
We had a drawing of that for the Planning Commission documents that described, that articulated exactly what you just described.
In the planning documents?
Yeah.
Okay, well, now they know.
And that was approved as part of the planning
Yeah,
commission.
it
Good.
just didn't, it's not in this packet. I was
That was actually in the motion, as I recall. There was something about
Right.
traffic
Yeah.
flow, yeah.
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 Yeah, Mr.
All right,
Pratt
so-
put that back.
And Laura, do you want to jump in here, or we're going to try to make it up as we go along?
Thank you. The Planning Commission did require in their motion that trucks utilize the Schoolcraft eastbound, and that truck traffic during construction of the site and after for daily operations could not utilize Schoolcraft northbound, excuse me, Haggerty northbound,
Right.
and enter the Livonia, Northville, and Northern Plymouth community area.
Right.
They will have to in an emergency if there's an accident on 275. And I assume your company is doing just in time? So if you have to get to the assembly plant, you may have to violate that. Is that correct?
There is some just-in-time operation in the facility, that's correct.
So you know how sometimes there's big accidents on 275, and to get on, you might have to go north or south to get around that intersection at 275 and 696, which has many problems with accidents, and then it can have a long tie-up.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else by the board? Any comments or questions from the public? All righty, looking for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor,
Mr. Heitman.
I move to approve Resolution 2019-04-23-44, granting a 12-year industrial facilities exemption certificate to Webasto Roof Systems for the land improvement and new building located at 14200 Haggerty Road in the Schoolcraft Business Park as requested.
Motion's
Second.
been made by trustee Heitman. Is there a second?
I seconded it.
Second by trustee Kermy. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Trustee Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Trustee Dempsey.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes.
All right, good luck. Next is item F3. This is the Beck Road Hotel PUD consideration. Laura Haw is still with us, and I believe we have Leo Gonzalez, or who's going to take the lead on this one? Laura?
I can provide an overview first.
Okay.
Thank you. As you recall, in 2017, the Board of Trustees approved a planned unit development for the subject site, which consists of two parcels that have since been combined, commonly known as 15075 Beck Road. The PUD was approved for a hotel and mixed-use development, which would include a secondary commercial freestanding building to augment the existing, at that time at that time it was the Ruby Tuesdays restaurant, which is now the proposed Buddy's sit-down establishment. Since this time, the applicant has gone through multiple revisions to their final development plan, which included at one point a modification by breaking out the final development plan into two phases. Phase 1 is only for the southern portion of the site, the east portion of the site, which is along Beck Road and includes the existing sit-down restaurant, Buddy's, and the freestanding building, which is comprised of 2 different tenants with 1 drive-through. And then the western portion of the site is the future site for Phase 2, whether that's a hotel or another similar office use as identified in the PUD contract. So the request this evening from the applicant is for final plan unit development approval and the PUD contract for Phase 1 only. At such a time that Phase 2 would be developed, the applicant would have to come back and go through the PUD final development plan process for the western portion of the site, which would include Planning Commission and Board of Trustee consideration.
So walk us through this map here. To the where is the Buddy's Pizza going to be right now?
Directly north of the cursor. Yep, and then just to the right a little bit, that's the Buddy's parking lot, basically. That's the existing Ruby Tuesdays restaurant is being converted with some minor facade changes, improvements, to the Buddy's Pizza. Directly south of that is the proposed freestanding building, approximately 3,000 square feet.
Are those pepperoni?
Those are pepperoni.
It's really good. Got to make them red. You got to make them red. Okay. So Beck Road is to my right, is to the right of that graph, right?
Correct.
That map. Okay,
And
so that's
then-
Beck Road. Okay.
And then to the south of the pepperoni is the new freestanding building, 3,000 square feet. That has 2 tenant spaces. One is a drive-through, one is more of a sit-down cafe or retail space. There is an outdoor patio in the front that will be decorative. To the left of the screen on the west side of the property and left of that yellow line, that's kind of the demarcation line for Phase 1 and Phase 2. Everything to the left is Phase 2. That would require Planning Commission and Board of Trustees review. And on the very left edge boundary is the replacement trees that have been added, 3 to 4 staggered rows of vegetation that will be planted by the end of October of this year and must remain in perpetuity even with the development of Phase 2. If there's any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them. The applicant is also here this evening, a representation of. There is a proposed resolution for your consideration as well. And last week, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the plans, which I believe you had a hard copy in your board packets of the latest drawings.
Laura, are we at this point approving the plan or are we approving the PUD?
We are approving the final development plan, the site plan, for Phase 1 only, so
Okay.
for the freestanding building.
The PUD has already been approved. Right.
The PUD option was approved in 2017.
Okay.
Within your packet, though, as well, is the PUD contract, which is the binding agreement between the township and the developer.
Why has it taken so long to get to this point if it was 2017 that the PUD was approved?
There has been a lot of changes to the site, and I really can't answer that on behalf of the applicant.
There have been
10.
numerous
10?
There have been numerous alterations to the documents, and the documents have been sent back for further refinement and review on numerous occasions by the planning department and by the building department. So it's been a long time coming, and we're eager. You know, I'd be happy to. I would be very happy to get this project moving again. Okay, I mean, this has been a real burden on us to move this along. We're constantly been sending it back. We believe we wouldn't be here tonight if we didn't think that everything was finalized. The Buddy's Pizza site is well underway. We want to supplement that building with other similar fast food environments and also begin to address the property to the rear.
Property to the south?
Well, to the rear of Buddy's, so to the west of to the west of Buddy's, that.
So this yellow boundary, that's where most of the trees were removed, right directly behind the Home Depot parking lot?
No.
Correct.
No.
No?
The trees,
No,
tree-
you're
Directly behind the Home Depot parking lot, many trees were directly south.
directly south and west of the Buddy's site.
It's Home Depot is the closest
So-
building.
Right here,
Right.
right here. So this is an old photo, obviously. This is this would be the Ruby Tuesdays, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Home Depot to the north.
Home Depot's here.
So Laura, part of the original approval of the PUD
Yes.
was an understanding that they would preserve the natural landscape of this, the contours of the land, the trees, etc.
Correct.
So they broke that promise in
Correct.
terms of the agreement that they made in entering this PUD.
Yes.
Okay. Chuck, you asked the question earlier too about Wabasto, have they paid their taxes? The answer to that question for this is no. They've not paid the taxes on the Ruby Tuesday property. They've not paid the taxes on the potential hotel properties. They haven't paid the taxes for any of the properties around 5 Mile and Beck.
Okay, this confirms what my concern is. Potentially, it's an undercapitalized, confused developer whose also agent is involved in purchasing property from us at Port Street. This is a high-maintenance applicant, from what I can tell. Why aren't they paying their taxes? If I was that confused, I would definitely have everything in line, and you clear-cut trees that can't be replaced. Yeah, they'll grow back after 50 years. So I'm confused as to what's going on here.
Part of the reason that somebody had asked the question, how many revisions, and they were sent back multiple times, things would be
I think you need to use your,
sorry.
use your thing.
So, I mean, they were sent back multiple times. Things would be half done. The homework wouldn't be done. We have had some trust issues over the years with this particular individual at other properties with the township, and in some cases prior to most of the tenure of this board, there have been some trust issues. So because of that, I personally, insist that every T be crossed and I be dotted properly, and that everything is in writing, because I do have some concerns there. I didn't know about the taxes.
Kevin, could we make approval tonight contingent upon payment of all back taxes within 30 days?
Yes. Approval of the contract and of the final development plan is a discretionary consideration for the board, so the board can place conditions on that approval.
I'm sorry, say again.
How much do they owe? Do you know, like just rough number?
Don't quote me, I'm saying with all the properties around 5 Mile and Beck.
Well, hold on now. I mean, the 5 Mile, you're talking now the corner property as well, right?
Well, the same owner.
I understand that, but, I mean, I don't know how much we want to expand the penalty here. I mean, I don't know if we can legally we can track down other back taxes for property that this is not part of. The corner is not part of this PUD.
No, but it's a pattern of behavior with a developer that we're trying to partner with.
Yeah, it's disingenuous on the part of the developer.
I just don't know if that, my question is one of legality. I just don't know if we can make something, I think we can make it contingent upon paying the property taxes for the site that's contemplated under the PUD. I don't know if we can attach another property that's not connected to the PUD.
So rough numbers, just would you guess, is it $100, 1,000, 10,000?
Probably 50 grand.
Many tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah. And at
Did
this
you know
point,
that, Leo?
Leo hasn't been listening to what we're saying. Are you hearing us?
Knock it off, Chuck.
Yeah.
Come on.
You
We're
have?
not, we're
Okay.
not here to insult people tonight.
Well, then why are you leaving?
He's going to make a phone call.
10 days?
Oh.
Is that what you just say?
Oh,
Okay. All right.
well,
All right. Well, you talk to your client, and we're going to ask some more
They
questions.
can't, Leo, they can't be paid to Plymouth Township at this point. They have to be paid to Wayne County.
So I have a couple questions for our planner. Are you aware of whether the second building that's in phase one, do they have tenants right now for those, like they do with the Buddies?
what is this?
So that would be,
The one that's not built, you mean?
The fast food drive-through place.
The 3,000 square foot new build, they have expressed that they have Tropical Smoothie as the drive-through tenant, and the other tenant has not been disclosed, but I haven't seen any documentation, whether that would be for signage or anything to that effect.
so that's
That piece right there.
this right here, right? Yeah.
Correct.
And this is the same developer that owns the corner property at 5 Mile and Beck?
You mean the former
Southwest?
Max and Irma's?
Former Max
Southwest
and
corner
Irma's.
That owns the southwest and southeast.
and southeast? Okay, so what's the status of
And the
this?
Shell station here.
And what's the status of the southwest corner development?
They just submitted last week for a revised site plan for Planning Commission consideration. They have adjusted their site plan at that location as well.
And just out of curiosity, what's that for? What's the purpose of that?
It's a proposed Panera and Taco Bell.
I recommend that we consider and discuss postponing this to the next regular meeting. They'll pay their taxes maybe in 10 days. And because they're not going to be building anything or doing anything in the next 10 days, if we put it contingent, we don't have to beg people to develop in Plymouth Township. We want people to be meeting us halfway, proactive. And we have bent over forward and backward on this one. And I really think that we need to put some pressure on this constant renegotiation, let's change this, let's fix that. You'll let me pass on this mentality. This is a bad example. We've never seen this in a big way in Plymouth Township. This is one of the worst examples I've seen in 25 years.
Now, they pay every time they come in to Planning Commission with all these new changes? No?
They do. I would say that this is unlike any other applicant that I've worked with in my professional career.
Can you say that again?
I
please?
agree.
I
Say
didn't
that
hear
again.
What you said.
I'm sorry. Unlike any other applicant I've worked with in my professional career, in terms of the resource drain.
The
So-
resource drain?
Resource drain.
Undercapitalized is what I said previously, so, all right.
I had another question, which was whether or not you're aware, driving by, I can't tell, there obviously is construction going on the site right now. Is that all related to the Buddies reconfiguration, or is there anything else going on?
Yes, Buddies, separate from this project, applied for an administrative review major, which included review by the Administrative Review Committee for some minor improvements to the building facade and then their interior remodel. And that is on a separate track somewhat than this project, although it's my understanding that the Buddies parking lot is tied to the improvements that are part of this project.
So the trees are all gone. Was that also, when they removed the trees, did they do that consistent with policies, practice of the building department as the previous applicant had, or did they not?
No.
Because the spirit of, like his point was, the spirit of a PUD was to create, there was a stretch that this was a PUD, but we allowed that in exchange for the promise from the verbal promise from the developer that he would do the best he can, but instead he clear cut, which was the easy way. So this just smacks of arrogance or incompetence or something. So I say, let's wait, and I'll make a motion to postpone it.
But how
would
do you
like-
balance that against the fact that, I mean, as Kurt had talked about earlier, I mean, you know, we want to encourage development and commerce.
And we are.
We want to be.
Yeah, before we,
No,
I'd
I
just like to
will-
hear
I-
from the developer as to these points. I'm not arguing necessarily against the validity of this motion, but I do think it'd be proper procedure to hear from the applicant, the developer,
Well, the
on these
applicant's
issues.
not here.
Well, but his representative is. And, you know,
Yeah, our materials say something about Mr. Gonzalez, don't they?
He's not. He hasn't.
But his name is not on the drawing.
He doesn't show up.
all right, Mr. Gonzalez is the developer's representative, and just as the other gentleman was the representative of Wabasto. We did not have the CEO of Wabasto here tonight. So, Mr. Gonzalez, it sounds like you have the floor.
Leo Gonzalez, CRS Commercial, 10741 Fellows Hill Drive, Plymouth Township, Michigan. So I did, to address your comments and questions, I talked to Ned. From the structure of the property taxes are as follows. Buddy's Pizza is responsible to pay for their property taxes. Ned was notified that they haven't been paid, and he put them on notice that they are to be paid. I guess part of the agreement, this predates Ned. What happened is when they originally did a lease with Ruby Tuesdays, which Buddy's took over in a lease, Ruby Tuesdays was responsible to pay for the property taxes. Of course, Buddy's transitioned into Ruby Tuesday's position within the lease approximately 3 months ago and overlooked or did not facilitate the payment of the property taxes that were turned over to the county. Ned is aware that those are to be paid and will follow up with that. There is another tax bill that relates to the vacant land that's to the west of the property. That bill should have been paid in December, so it wasn't turned over. As far as he understands, he will go ahead and get this paid or get proof that it's been paid and turn it over to you immediately. It's sort of an explanation on the taxes. And it's likely pretty good sized tax bill because Ruby Tuesdays was an improved property, so it had to be every bit of, I would think, $15,000, $20,000 worth of taxes. So I don't want that to be a reflection upon Ned, at least in totality. Certainly, the property taxes on the vacant land should have been paid and should have been paid in December, because I understand that if it's not paid in December and it goes through to March, then it turns over Wayne County because you guys stopped collecting March 31st.
It's all at the county, yes.
Okay. So we can go on record to say that we'll show you proof we'll go back to Buddy. We've already put Buddies on notice because they're in default if they don't pay the property taxes under the terms of their lease.
I find it hard to believe that Buddies would come into Plymouth Township and not pay their taxes. I mean, it's not a really good way to start, is it?
Well, you got to realize they took over in August, and they may have had a prorations when they did the assignment, because if I'm taking over an assignment of interest in a lease from Ruby Tuesdays may have not paid those taxes in advance, should have notified Buddies, listen, you've got to pay these because they're due. What technically should have happened is Ruby Tuesday should have paid the taxes all the way through to December, assuming they took over in August. They should have paid all the taxes.
I mean, that's like a basic
This is a
finance
basic
101. That's corporations
I
101.
Well, I understand, but we're dealing with entities that do make mistakes, and maybe there wasn't a clear understanding. Coupled with the fact is Buddies was purchased by a private enterprise about 6 months ago. So they're just transitioning into these properties. What probably should have happened is Ruby Tuesday should have had all their property taxes paid up in advance through December of 2018 and through summer of 2019, end of June. Then there would have been a prorations due at this transfer. Then nobody would have been in default in this case. Well, what had happened is they must have overlooked that, and somebody internally on Buddy's side didn't facilitate the payment of these taxes. Ned was aware of it, and, you know, he should have had proof that they paid. If they were my tenant, I would have demonstrate proof that they've paid them thus far.
So Leo, who's responsible for the tax at the former Max and Irma's, as well as the Shell station across the street?
Max and Irma's is Ned.
I'm sorry, it's Ned?
Ned, wow, Ned
What's his last
Jawash.
name?
Ned Jawash, and it's an LLC. It would be tied to the address of the LLC, at least on Max and Irma's. I don't know what the status of the Shell station is on what their LLC is, but we'll call it Jawash, Ned Jawash, for the Shell gas station.
And those tax bills are outstanding as well.
Okay.
Have they been turned over to the county?
Yeah. Anything after March 31. So I think it shows a pattern of civic irresponsibility. You want something, but you're not willing to.
Or you don't have the money?
Okay. Undercapitalized then. So
Is a yes.
I move that we
Hold on.
go ahead.
Hold on. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Well, yeah, I'd like to hear responses to the other issues that have been brought up before you today.
So on the trees should have not been removed. We did have a provision in the PUD that the trees were to stay until such time we developed phase 2. Substantial amount of trees still would have been removed in the phase 2 development. There was a section of trees in the northwest section that we're going to preserve long term. The trees were removed incorrectly. And now what we've done is gone ahead and proposed in our PUD to plant all the replacement trees back on site, with the exception of 44, which we paid into a tree fund to be planted, to be used by the community, to be planted where they would like throughout the community. The reason we couldn't plant the 44 is you just conceivably could not put the extra trees back onto the site, number one. Number two, we did not want to impact what the future limits of the development. When the hotel comes in the future, or whatever project it turns out to be, we'll have these permanent trees that we've already planted on the furthest west side of this, which translates to the replacement trees, and then we'll have a permanent set of trees to the north. Will as mentioned by the planner, will run in perpetuity with the property. We are also in a situation where we're going to sprinkle those trees, irrigate them. We're also going to plant a vegetation material, a flower mix and seed to stabilize that property, so that we have something that's a little bit more appealing between now and the time that we break ground when we come back for phase 2. There was a misstep on the trees, but the only way we could remedy it is to come back and replace them. You know, we hope that the benefit of having the newer trees placed strategically within this property, we can never say it would outweigh the benefit of having the older trees. But the reality is a substantial amount of the other trees would have been removed in the future development anyways. Doesn't give us the right to have done it prematurely the way we did, clearly. But we hope that the long-term solution of having these trees planted under this phase 1 process is a benefit to the community as well.
What's the timetable on the phase 2 thing?
So phase 2 is, we want to secure a first-class hotel. And unfortunately in the hotel industry, there's been so much consolidation. There's only 3 players that control all the flags. We lost on our opportunity to do the Hilton because we weren't approved within the time that we could secure their interest. They ended up going on the northwest corner of 5 Mile and back. Hilton's position is, when we open up a new brand in an area, We're just not going to add another brand on top of it, even if it's a different category. So now we're at the crossroads of working with Marriott, albeit a great brand as well. But Marriott's very selective in cannibalizing other markets in the Detroit metropolitan area, such as 6 Mile and Haggerty. Misspoke. 6 Mile and 275, and Ford Road and 275. So we're juggling. They're juggling that. We feel that we keep on being persistent with them, and they recognize the growth in this area has really expanded, which it is, through the MITC, which development on the northwest corner, newer projects that have come before you in your community, that they'll reconsider this market as a Marriott brand. The other brand we're looking at is Wyndham. So Wyndham has probably 2 or 3 notable brands that could go there that we've given some consideration. And we've been approved by a Wyndham brand already. But we're really holding out for a Marriott if at all the opportunity's there. And I think with the substantial amount of growth that we've seen in this market in the last 12 months and the substantial amount of new announcements, you just approved a brand new industrial park to the west of the Home Depot. That's going to probably be another 800,000 to 1 million square feet of retail, of industrial. All these things will drive us getting the brand that we're looking for.
So there's a problem, there are some open issues relative to phase 2, but Dan, can you speak to the issue, the hotel and the requirement of the fire department's requirement to have an egress or?
Yeah, that site there requires 2 ingresses and egresses. Those ingresses and egresses, road ingress and egress, have to be a certain distance apart to comply with the fire code. And that has been one of the issues that we've been trying to address with the neighbor to the north, Home Depot, that if I understand still today, doesn't want to give access to the developer.
Which would require an easement, right?
You know, I'm not sure it would require an easement. No, it probably would, because we would have to, it would require an easement. The development that on Plymouth Road, the 2 4-story buildings we're putting in there, we got an easement basically from the city of Plymouth on that road with the, that goes to the cemetery. So I believe it would require an easement with the Home Depot property. Now, they can get a, I don't want to say a variance, but there is ways to align that property for another exit if they can't get it with Home Depot. It's just, they would have to go to another site and see if they can get it from them.
Is this a temporary that would only be used, you'd have a lock on it, and only be used in an emergency?
It can be, yes. I prefer not to use locks because they slow down fire response. In other places in the community, we've had like a packed down earth with grass over it that doesn't look like you can drive on it, but the fire department can't access through it.
I think right across the street at the McDonald's, there's a chain over an entrance.
There is, yes.
Which should not be there, perhaps?
Well, I don't prefer them, but that doesn't mean they're not legal.
So if we have to drive our fire truck through it, does McDonald's get to reimburse us for the damage from the chain?
We do keep bolt cutters on all our fire trucks. But again, I try to dissuade people from doing that because it delays our response.
That has delayed. You know, there was talk about timing and why it took so long. And that's an explanation why we split these phases up. Number one, we just couldn't secure this access timely. Home Depot has a position. We talked with legal. Chief has been very good working with us. Has signed a letter that we sent to their chief of staff, chief of council, said, hey, this is why we need it. We need it for fire truck access. We feel we'll secure this if we're persistent, and they'll recognize that, you know, it's not going to create a burden on their property by having a fire truck maybe utilizing that section there once in the next 20 years. So to answer your question, yeah, we do need to have that access. You know, this piece is sort of a, this is a byproduct of all the things building around us over all these years. And in none of the planning, none of the things that happened before all of us were the right steps taken to grant this piece another means of ingress, which you typically do, which we call interconnectivity. So now we're here with this parcel we have, and it's got some inherent problems to work through, and some of these take longer than others, specifically the access.
If there is not a hotel going onto this site, I mean, you have a hotel across the street, you're now going to have another one right down the street in Northville. Is this, and maybe this is a Laura Haw question, is this properly zoned for light industrial commercial as we see to the west and south of the site?
The site is, the rear portion of the site is zoned industrial, so, which would allow for a hotel with the PUD, but also specified in the PUD contract is that alternative office or perhaps commercial uses may be ideal for this site, but that would have to be, that process, the applicant would have to come back before the board.
Okay. I have another question for the attorney. Can we force the applicant to pay back taxes on other properties in the township that are not contemplated in the four corners of the PUD before us?
When you originally asked the question, it was my impression that the taxes that were not paid were within the four corners of the PUD property. The answer to that question would be yes. The board can make that contingent. With respect to property that is outside of the PUD property, I would say that's very, very dangerous to do. Then you're going to get into a slippery slope of things similar to contract zoning, which is frowned upon. You give us something, we'll give you this.
Well, I also think it becomes a bill of attainder. I think we end up crafting a resolution that's aimed at a particular individual, compelling them to do something that otherwise they wouldn't have to do. I mean, I don't know if that's enforceable.
Let me make a comment. Why don't I offer up, rather than you guys tie it into the motion, why don't I offer up as a condition, we'll agree to pay all the property taxes on all the properties that are owned by Ned Jawash. Shell gas station, Max and Irma's, and of course the site that we had talked to within 14 days.
Okay, we'll take you up on that. We'll postpone this until May 14th.
He has a long history of not keeping his
We'll
word.
take you up
You
on
know
it. I
that.
like the deal. May 14th. So,
All right.
Why not do a conditional and don't give me the permit to do any work there?
Well, what difference does it make then?
Because if I can bring back the paid taxes, well, one of them's out of our control, which is a Buddy's Pizza, but if we can bring you back all the paid bills for the three respective properties, we'll refer to them as Shell Station, Max and Irma's, and the vacant land to the west, then we've delivered on our, what we're offering to do.
I think you'll win and we'll win, and we won't have to tie anything. There's no contingency. We'll just postpone this to May 14th, which is the next regular meeting. Give you plenty of time to get things in order with your client.
Here's the problem, and I know it shouldn't be put in this context, but here's our problem. We've got Buddy's opening up June 10th. They just put us on notice. We hope it gets pushed out a little bit. There's a sanitary line, a part of this whole project. One of the most critical items in this whole thing is a sanitary line that goes approximately 17 feet deep and services the western parcel of this property for future phase 2. We do not have enough discretion in the entry agreement with the lease that we can tear up their parking lot in the future and put that line in after they open up. So if we can't get the line in, and that's the only thing that's, listen, we want to move forward with everything else, but we need to get this line in timely so they can get open, so we're not subject to being potentially not to be able to service that western parcel. And there's, of course, there's penalties tied to us interrupting their business, clearly in our agreement with them. So that's what's kind of what was driving this, the pressure of getting this line put in. And it's the only way it services, it's only that and if it wasn't, it's not a water line, and actually the sanitary runs across the parking lot and a portion of the ingress. So it will really impact their parking ability. And it curtails our ability to develop the western parcel because we didn't get it in timely.
Is this sewer line issue incorporated in the PUD in any way, or is it outside of the PUD?
Well, we incorporated it in part of the PUD because it was all going to be developed anyways. You know, had we thought about this in the past, we could have, I guess, potentially come in and said, hey, we want to extend a sewer line to our property here. We don't know when it's going to be developed. I'm sure we could have provided the necessary design documents to the engineering department. They would have submitted still a permit to the MDEQ, and we could have gone ahead and extended a sanitary line without being tied it to a PUD. It wasn't necessary for us to do that because we're going to do everything together anyways. It just so happens we're at this sort of this crossroads at this point now, being that the sanitary line is the critical item.
MDEQ, this is a Plymouth Township decision for a sewer line there. That's
No,
not
no,
MDEQ.
anytime, well, I'll let Mr. Richmond answer that.
It's sanitary or is it storm?
Did you have a,
This is there's a public sanitary sewer line that needs to be extended to the rear of the
Yes.
site. So when it's public, once we approve the plans, then it has to go to the DEQ for approval from the DEQ for a public sanitary sewer line. Same with a public water line. It has to go to the MD, well, they just changed their name today, but it has to go to the DEQ for approval.
And you expect, you wouldn't get this approval in time to have everything done by June 10th?
Well, the problem that he's having is that this, the sewer line is going through the parking lot.
Right.
And so they have to tear up the parking lot in order to put the sewer
Right.
line in, which then would stop Buddy's business.
But you expect to get MDEQ and all the approvals in time to get construction done by June 10th?
Yes, the DEQ, we had conversations with them last week, and they were supposed to be looking at this permit at the end of the week.
Why is it critical to have a sewer line when you don't even have a project there and you don't, there's no guarantee? So my point is, let Buddy's open, let them do their thing, and then next year, you put your sewer line in.
Because we've got to bring their sewer line across the property,
You
the
close
parking lot.
down Buddy's.
Completely.
Put in the sewer.
Completely. And to answer further question regarding approvals, we already have Wayne County soil erosion permit. That's why you see the soil erosion material up out there. We have our permit for the road, and we have our permit for the stormwater. So a lot of these things we have achieved them thus far, and this is sort of the last piece of it. And to the supervisor's point, yeah, if we could do this after and we didn't have to go through this, then we certainly, it won't put the pressure into the situation like it does.
So there's always a gotcha or whatever here.
So Leo, how long do you need to pay the taxes?
10 days.
I don't care about the other properties. I don't think legally we can make you do that. If you want to make, I don't think we can legally compel him as part of a
I
resolution.
know, but I pay my taxes and it offends me
Yeah.
when other people don't.
Okay, well, I'm offended too, but, you know, I'm in a tight spot
Well,
here.
the man has volunteered
So
to do that. We
if he's
can make it
volunteered to do it, that's fine, but I can't enforce that. So
But he's not an officer of the company, no matter what he agrees to, he's not an officer of the
We can't-
company.
we
He
can't
can't commit
enforce
to
it.
anything.
we can't
Whatever
force
he
him to pay
agrees to, we
taxes on
can't.
other properties.
No, I'm talking, no, just forget about the other properties that are not this. You still have the Buddy's portion, which he doesn't control, and you have one other piece here, correct, Mark? In this PUD, in the PUD. So he controls, that owner controls those two tax bills, right? There's two in this PUD?
How many tax bills in the PUD? Two?
One tax bill, the other tax bill is under the, is under Buddy's obligation to pay.
Right, but you're the.
We're still the property owner, and
And the
I would agree
leaseor.
with you, if the tenant doesn't pay, we're still obligated to pay because we still own the property. So technically, we are still obligated to pay that, and we'll make sure, we'll either pay the bills ourselves. If we can't get Buddies to do it timely, we'll pay those and show you proof of that, and then we'll get reimbursed from Buddies because they have a legal obligation to do that. And of course, the vacant land stands on its own.
Okay, Dave Richmond has a comment.
I just took a look at the plans, and it's my opinion that that sanitary sewer line could be bored without disrupting the parking lot. Because the manhole that they're tapping into is far enough into a greenbelt area where if you use boxes, and especially with it being 17 feet deep, they're going to have to use boxes. They're not going to lay back a trench that's 50 feet wide. And then you come back into the site towards where the proposed hotel is going to be, and you could bore back towards Beck Road and make that connection without tearing up the parking lot. That is an option to do the work. It's an added expense to the developer, but it is an option to make the sanitary.
That's a bad word for this developer. We don't want to, he can't handle more expense, but.
And we've had Sante looking at this already. He's got the set of plans, he's bid it, because it was not in Ned's intent that he was going to do this direct, he was going to sub it out to Sante Construction. This is a very detailed, when you're going 17 feet, it's got to be done right, depth. And we want it to be done timely, too. We didn't want any delays on our part once we got into the ground on construction.
Okay. I still want to make a motion, hopefully somebody will second it, to defer this. You'll have plenty of time, 2 weeks to get everything sorted out, and we'll approve it on May 14th. So I move to postpone this agenda item, which is 2274-0118 item. Okay, what is the letter on the agenda? Item 3 on the agenda, postponed to May 14th.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second it for purposes of procedure.
Or you want to postpone to next week, May 7th. Can you be ready?
No, May 7th is a study session.
But you can take up an item if you change the notice.
Remember, May 7th.
May 7th is 2 weeks from now. Yeah.
Okay.
May 14th is our next regular meeting.
3 weeks, yeah.
Oh, well, that's maybe a little too long.
I could make May 7th a special meeting.
Make it a special meeting. We'll do that as a concession, and give you plenty of time to get your ducks in order and find out what Buddy's doing, find out what your owner is doing, and he's going to have to line up the cash, I guess, or something to get the boring or whatever he's going to do, the open cut, and pay taxes, I hope, on the PUD properties, not anything else.
Okay, so Jack, are you okay with that? You seconded the motion.
May 7th.
To postpone it to a May 7th special meeting? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Yes, I'll second that.
All right, so a motion has been made and seconded to postpone this item till a special meeting on May 7th. Any questions or comments from the board?
What if they don't get paid? We cancel the meeting?
No, we're having the meeting anyway.
It'll be a special meeting, and we will have, I'm planning on 2 study session items. We could actually put a third on if it's going to be a special meeting, but I don't know if you want to be that daring that night.
Yeah.
We can
Given
be
the subject
hyper
matter.
efficient.
Huh?
Well,
Given
we're
the
not
subject
full-time employees, so let's not pack
okay.
in more and more
Oh, okay.
stuff on here.
Yeah, okay. So a yes vote is to postpone, a no vote is to continue discussion tonight. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Trustee Heitman.
No.
Clerk Borba, yes. Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Trustee Dempsey.
No.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. So we'll see you on May 7th. It'll be a special meeting, which means we can vote that night. But the taxes have got to be paid. I didn't know about this tonight.
I didn't either.
And that's a kick in the butt, and we don't.
I didn't know either.
And we don't appreciate it.
I'm sorry that this had to be come forth this way. We're going to remedy this.
Now, the one good news item that I think you should point out to the board is that your site plan for all of this was approved by the Planning Commission last week, right?
Unanimous approval. But
That's this one right here that was at the,
Yeah.
they, they spent a lot of time on this, and I think it's reflective of the fact that they voted unanimously for it.
And there were still some open items, but those, I assume those were all resolved, right?
Well, and it's, a lot of that's reflected in the proposed motion for
Right.
tonight. I mean, that's got to be one of the longest motions I've ever seen.
Right.
It is.
And so I think that took into account a lot of the stuff that came up at the Planning Commission level. I cannot speak for the board, but my rationale tonight is the taxes. That is not cool. So the other stuff is also not cool. I mean, the taking down of the trees, and I've told you that before, but we've worked that out. We've put money into the tree escrow. We worked out a landscaping plan with you, and it was approved by the Planning Commission. So pay the taxes.
So just for clarity, Mr. Supervisor, they did pay the tree?
Yes.
They did pay that?
They have paid into the tree escrow.
Okay.
the check cleared.
So just so I know, so we don't go through another hour on May 7th and do rehashing the same bullshit. The only reason we're doing this is because somebody didn't pay their taxes.
Once again, that is my personal opinion.
That's why Chuck brought the motion up that way.
No, that's not the only reason.
Well, that was my personal reason,
With
as
the
I
rest
said.
of the caveats in this resolution, it appears to be.
There's a lot of caveats, so to give you more.
Yeah.
It's a ton of caveats.
Yeah, but the caveats were created by the planning director
Yeah, but they're all in this-
after successful
they're all in
approval by the planning
Yeah, I'll bet
commission.
you lunch.
So, come on, guys. I mean,
Well,
you're just gonna.
I don't think.
My
that-
issue is the back
I don't think
taxes.
that comment was appropriate.
Well, I don't want to sit here and argue for an hour for something that's going to be,
You haven't
Predetermined.
seen the history.
I haven't been in the 10 planning
You
meetings
haven't
with
been,
you.
you
You're
haven't
right.
been called into
You're right.
special meetings to show up and find that they didn't do their homework and they didn't finish the work. I would never have gone into a meeting with my boss unprepared. And they came meeting after meeting after meeting unprepared.
And they were eventually approved by the planning commission. This has not been a pleasant
And they
experience for
wasted
anybody.
hours and hours and hours of planning commission time. And
Okay.
you weren't there, Gary.
Oh, I know.
Okay,
I
good.
know. I
All right.
fully agree with
So
you.
don't call it BS.
Okay,
No, it's
everybody.
BS.
Thank you,
We
members
gotta
of the
keep
board.
Okay, guys. All right. Thank you, Leo. See you on May 7th. Does anybody want to take a quick break? Or no? You want to keep moving? All right. Item F4 is Parks Projects Intergovernmental Agreement with Wayne County. It's pretty self-explanatory. We get a Wayne County Parks allocation every year. I'm asking for $75,000 for an ADA-capable pathway at Township Park between the Four Seasons Pavilion and Ball Diamond 4, repair of the underground conduits and lighting for the pavilion parking lot. This was a cost overrun from last year because the conduits which were installed by the previous administration to illuminate the parking lot were jammed up with debris and gunk, and we had to spend a ton of money trying
That was
to
about
clean
16,
that out.
that was the 16,000 that we were talking about? To clean them. Or
Don't know.
redo them.
And then $25,000 to supplement the construction of a picnic pavilion at Miller Park in honor of late trustee Kay Arnold. $125,000 has been donated by her husband, Tim Doyle. Tim is here tonight. I'd just like to have him stand up and be recognized.
Thank you, Ken.
Mr. Doyle, that is an incredibly generous gift to the people of Plymouth Township, and we are extremely appreciative. We can't thank you enough, and we know that that will help continue the memory of Kay Arnold and the great work that she did for our community for many years.
Amen.
Thank you.
Do you want to show the plans? Or?
Sure. Dave Richmond has got some quick drawings here. And I will point out that even with this withdraw from the Wayne County Parks money, we're expecting another $68,000 this year. We will have, by the end of the calendar year, we'll have about 140 grand in the account that we can still draw down from for future projects. So that's where the picnic shelter would be. Is it going to be that small compared to the rest of the park, Dave? Or is that?
That's scaled as close as I could get it on a PDF. It's scaled as close as I can get it. It's a 20 by 40 picnic shelter.
Okay.
And we do have another, this is generally what we're looking at what we'll be looking to put out there.
Very nice.
And the township will be paying for some other amenities like picnic tables, trash cans, a plaque of some sort, and I believe a flag. Is that also part
Yeah,
of
we had a flag
flag,
program.
and it'll be illuminated too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, since there is no parking there, how do we need to plan this so that if there's a big party, the neighbors, you live there, you're a neighbor, Tim. How do we manage that? Or are we going to handle the rent? Is this going to be rentable?
No.
No, it's just ad hoc.
Yeah, I mean, Miller Park was conceived as a neighborhood walk-to park. We deliberately do not have parking in the area. In fact, there are signs around the park that say that this is a neighborhood park. This is not, and Mr. Doyle, if you want to jump in, that's fine, but this is really not intended to be it's more of it's a canopy. It's a place where people can sit, they can get some shade, they can have a picnic. It's not going to be rented out for parties or anything like that. It's just an amenity for the park where people can relax.
Do we have a plaque in the budget?
Yes.
And this should say Ann Arbor Trail, not Ann Arbor Tail.
It's the tail end of it.
The tail end of Ann Arbor.
One comment is that when the park was designed, we wanted to have that open space in there, so I'm glad you're keeping it so that at least people could play catch or throw a Frisbee.
That's what we met with Mr. Doyle out on the site, and that was one of the things we talked about, was making sure we placed it in such a manner that the kids could still play ball out there.
Yeah, we had somebody that planted those evergreen trees in the last 5 or 6 years. They really shouldn't be there because it covers up the open space, the ones at the closest to the Ferguson there, to the right of the box.
Here?
No, up. See where the box, see those the 5 small trees in the open area.
Oh, right.
Those are new plantings done in about 2015, 14, and really shouldn't be there because it's taking up open space.
Cut them down.
I know somebody can cut them down.
Yeah, that'll cut them down for
Now we want to cut trees down.
Well,
Incredible.
Maybe we would move them nearer to the shelter or something.
We
Yeah,
tried
relocate.
moving a pine tree once and then
But
it
he'll
died.
clear cut the whole thing.
Okay, so that's the
these cars-
that's the shelter.
Cars aren't real.
The cars are not real, and there's not going to be a parking lot there. So we'll call it a shelter. I think the pavilion is
Yeah, better
triggers
word.
too many people. So any other slides there, Dave?
The only other slide we had is just showing where the walk was going from the pavilion out to field number 4.
Sure, let's see that. Okay. Now, right now, that is dirt, and it is a hazard. We've had a lot of complaints from people who are there to watch ball games that they can't get through, and it's not.
You mean a wheelchair won't navigate it
Nothing
now?
will.
No.
Nothing will. Baby carriages, nothing. And of course, Field 4 is the one where we have the new lights, and that's where the Plymouth Canton Little League is pledged to build improvements to the baseball diamond. We also are going to have a tree program this year at the park. We've partnered with Relief of Michigan and Bosch. They will be providing funding for trees that we will coordinate with the baseball clubs. The trees were actually requested by them so that they could provide some shade for their spectators. Those trees will be planted around the same time that this work is done. And then if you see where the pavilion is, right to the immediate I would say to the 5 o'clock of the pavilion on that side. That's where we're going to be partnering this summer with Friends of the Rouge to build a rain garden that will be a demonstration project, and we're going to have people help us put that together, and that'll be maintained by us in perpetuity, and that will be draining into the wooded area to the immediate east.
That's great.
So we got a lot of work going on there this year between us, Friends of the Rouge, this project, the baseball clubs, and it's going to help make that a lot better.
Kurt, I have a friendly request on tree planting. To improve their survivability, plant them in October or the spring. In the past, we've had people planting in July, and I know the smart nurserymen say, oh, no problem, but it just increases the risk of death. Yeah. So our probability goes way up, even if they have a warranty, in the fall or early spring.
I think the relief people, and we've coordinated with the parks folks and Dave on that one, and that's one of the things we're looking to do as well. We don't want to be planting trees out there when we're building stuff over the summer.
Just for clarity, Mr. Supervisor, so the path goes both from the pathway that's on the north, but that goes north and south. So it connects in both directions, I guess is my point, right?
Yeah, Dave, I mean, I don't know. The red line there, it is kind of, I'm confused by that as well. I thought it would be a straight line.
Originally, I looked at a straight line. The problem is if it's going to be ADA compliant, we can't do a straight line. We're going to have to kind of wrap it around the backstop and bring it down at a gentle slope to tie into the existing pathway down there.
What is the surface?
It's concrete.
And how wide?
6 foot.
I thought it was wide.
That'll match the asphalt.
I thought it was going to be 8 feet. I thought it was going to be wider.
I started looking at it, and we've got 10 foot right up by the pavilion. The other walks are 6 foot, the asphalt walks around there, so we can make it 6 foot, we could make it 8 foot. Right now, I was looking at it being 6 foot.
Well, make it so a wheelchair can pass and a pedestrian without stopping. In other words, they can.
Sure.
I don't know what that specification is.
We're going to race.
We'll go back through and make sure that whatever we use out there, that we have that'll work.
Okay. All set on this one?
Do we have plans to pave the lower parking lot at all? That's gotten huge holes.
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
that is part of the CDBG project that we're working on right now. We're just waiting for some environmental clearance coming back from SHPO so that we can start moving forward with the finalizing the design and going out for bid. But there's where it's all tore up there, that's all getting replaced along with the pathway, a portion of that pathway going down to the place.
The ADA playscape and the other one, yeah.
This is kind of the last hurrah of the community block grant for us, right?
Pretty much in terms of brick and mortar projects. Wayne County has taken over the CDBG program now from all the communities, and we would be entitled to a one-time, once every 5 years, I think we would be entitled to a $140,000 brick and mortar project, but we still have to meet all of the federal low-income guidelines, which we have no low-income zones currently in the township. We might be able to get creative and try to make more improvements someday at Friendship Station like we did this year, but it's pretty remote. I mean,
well, it's going to go to places that probably need it more than we do. In the past, we were having to try to invent ways to use it.
Yeah.
So maybe that happened in much larger communities, and somebody finally awakened.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the board or the public? Again, thank you, Mr. Doyle. I need a motion.
Mr. Supervisor,
Clerk.
I move to approve Resolution 2019-04-23-46, authorize the supervisor and clerk to sign the interagency agreement with Wayne County for improvements to the Township Park and Miller Family Park.
Motion's been made by Clerk Vorva. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Heitman. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Dempsey.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Wonderful. Trustee Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisler.
Yes.
Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Clerk Vorva, yes. Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is item F5, fireworks ordinance revisions, first reading. Kevin, can you walk us through this quickly?
In 2018, the legislature amended the state statute regarding regulation of fireworks. One of the public acts that was enacted pertains to municipal regulation of fireworks. What Public Act 635 of 2018 did was expand the number of days when a municipality could prohibit consumer fireworks, the ignition of consumer fireworks. It also stated that a municipality may impose a civil fine of $1,000 for violation of an ordinance that the municipality adopts with respect to ignition of consumer fireworks. It also provides municipalities with some regulation with respect to temporary structures for the storage and sale of consumer fireworks. So what I did was I implemented these changes in the state law into the township's existing fireworks ordinance. The fireworks ordinance, and I included a provision in there that states that the township board may by resolution restrict the number of permits for a temporary structure, and it may set forth the terms under which a permit may be granted. So if a person wants to have a tent to sell or store fireworks around the 4th of July or any other holiday, the township board may by resolution restrict the number of tents or put conditions on what are the standards that the building department will issue a permit for the tents.
But we can only do that after August 1st of this year.
That provision, the state law says that only after August 1st of this year may municipalities regulate temporary structures, so you're correct. But the rest of it would be effective immediately upon publication after the second reading.
What about a vacant storefront? Could somebody sell fireworks still in a strip mall or something like that?
If it's a permanent structure, yes.
Under the new changes?
Yes. The only, they would have to get a license from Michigan Department of Lara to sell consumer fireworks from that location. That would be only something the state could do. But with respect to temporary structures, municipalities can regulate that. Permanent structures would be regulated by the state.
Well, we've had a tent sale for several years here in Plymouth Township along Ann Arbor Road.
Right.
And that's issued, who issues that permit? The building or the fire department? Or none?
I think it's issued by the state.
The state?
Yes.
Because the Elks parking lot had
That was the challenge, is there was nothing we could.
Mr. Supervisor, if I could chime in, the state does issue that permit, and we are required to issue it as well. So they come in and they give us the permit from the state, and we are required to provide a permit for them.
So for this season, that will be unchanged because this provision takes effect August 1.
That provision. The rest of it takes effect upon publication.
So then that brings up the next question. On page 201, where it says, shall take effect August 1, is that correct? Since it's only one provision, does this apply, the way it's written here, is this a typo? Page 201, I couldn't completely understand.
It's not intended to be a typo. It's intended to address the issue of tent sales.
Tent sales only?
Correct.
Okay, section 2.H, okay, this shall take effect. All right. So it's consistent.
Right.
I was confused.
Otherwise, otherwise we could have been faced with having to come back after August 1st and amend the ordinance again. But basically, this is a poison pill provision that would be inserted into the ordinance.
I just have a quick question, because I've also heard from, I know the fireworks get a little crazy, and dogs and people with PTSD particularly. But in terms of enforcement, so, because there's a $1,000 fine, somebody may not be aware. What do you guys do?
The local fire department still does not have authority in these temporary structures. We have to contact the state for a state inspector to come out.
I meant in the other provisions relative to
For shooting them off.
Yeah.
Who enforces that?
Who enforces it, and, I mean, how do you go about that?
Well, we go about, it's complaint-based. If somebody calls and said, they're throwing M80s out in the middle of the street, obviously, I can't think of any situation where, if it's kids, would probably, call their parents, send them home. I don't really see us charging people unless it's multiple times that we've been called out there and
Unless they,
warnings and so on.
yeah,
But
unless they don't
we still
stop.
do have the ability if we choose to, but
Okay.
there's a lot of
But
discretion.
we have all seen examples of fireworks that are not the bunch of kids just shooting off fireworks. I mean,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
of these are just,
No,
they
these
are
commercial-
explosives.
Yeah, these
And I guess my point is that a neighbor who just didn't know, and all of a sudden they get a $1,000 fine. If you go out there, you ask them to stop, they stop, everything's good. Yeah.
But we're concerned about the guy who knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's buying these things that are like mortar rounds, and he's blowing them up in the middle of the street. We've all heard stories like this. I've seen it. So,
Oh, it's crazy.
I mean, it's crazy, and that's the kind of thing we want to prohibit.
I mean, it's just crazy. Okay.
All right, any other questions from the board? Now, Kevin, this would be effective upon publication, but that will put us, that will still, maybe, or for Jerry, this will put us before Memorial Day, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It will be effective upon publication after the second reading.
After the second reading.
Well, with that in mind, if we're going to have a special meeting on May 7th, we might want to do this for second
Put this
reading.
one on there.
Second reading, yes.
Sure, why not? Why not?
Because that's efficient for
Yeah.
getting this, you want this in place before the people are buying.
Right.
And
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to have a special meeting, we might as well take
you
advantage.
can put it in e-news so that people who are trying to argue with their kids about buying fireworks, they can point to the new rule.
I believe we've already sent information to the papers to be aware that we're coming to do this.
Okay.
So I have one question. The $1,000, is that excessive? What do you think, you guys that are involved in law or whatever? 1,000 is a big hit.
It's a big hit.
If your kid does something stupid,
I think, again, we are,
Still like-
we want to make sure people use fireworks appropriately in accordance with the law. I think it will be the discretion of the police and the prosecutor to determine whether or not the full fine is necessary. This kind of sounds like those ordinances that we did a few months ago. We're not trying to punish people except where you are clearly abusing the law in such a way that you're blowing up what really amounts to explosives. I mean,
If I could just add, in response to Trustee Kermey's question, the state law states that an ordinance under subsection 2, which sets forth the times for ignition of consumer fireworks, shall impose a civil fine of $1,000 for each violation of the ordinance, and no other fine or sanction. So the state mandates that the fine be $1,000.
So we asked you nice to stop, and you didn't stop.
Right.
you blew up something that blew the windows out of my house, yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments from the public? All right, let's do the first reading then. I need a motion.
Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 1016, amendment number 24, for fireworks ordinance revision, resolution 2019-04-2347, to schedule the second reading and adoption for May 7th, 2019, to become effective upon publication.
Okay, motion's made by Clerk Vorva. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Dempsey. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Supervisor Heising.
Yes.
Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
yes.
Trustee Dempsey.
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next is item F6, District Ordinance Second Reading. Any comments or questions on this? Or from the public? Then I need a motion. Mr. Dempsey, I'm sure you'd like to do it again.
Jack, okay, go
I
ahead.
move to approve Resolution 2019-04-23-48, authorizing the second and final reading of the Plymouth Township Historic District Ordinance Number 1016, Amendment Number 23, to become effective on the date of publication in the Township's official newspaper, which will be April 25, 2019?
It doesn't make sense.
Well, that's when we had already scheduled it that. In order to get it into the paper, we pre-bought that time.
You know, space, for
Why don't
printing
we
space.
just, Jack, why don't we just eliminate which will be April 25th, 2019? I mean, I don't think that's.
I'll
fatal.
drop that part of the motion if it's
To become effective
unnecessary.
on the date of publication in the township's official newspaper, period.
Mr. Bennett's nodding,
Okay.
as is Ms. Haw, so.
Second.
All right, motion's been made by trustee Dempsey, seconded by Treasurer Clinton. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Heitman.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Treasurer Clinton.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Trustee Dempsey.
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz. Supervisor Heisey.
Yes. Was that a yes, Bob? Did I hear something?
I suppose.
He was smiling when he
That's
used
a
it.
yes. All right.
His head was going up and down.
Okay, let's move on to item G, supervisor and trustee comments. Let me just, I want to, well, we've talked about our upcoming meeting schedule. We have no meetings next week. We will have a special meeting now on May 7th. We will have another meeting, a regular meeting on May 14th. We will not have a meeting on May 28th, which is the day after Memorial Day, unless there is something very urgent that we have to attend to, and I hope we don't. So I just want to make a couple comments tonight on the Wabasto project. I'm not always a fan of term limits in Lansing, but one of the reasons why people voted for term limits was so that legislators could live by the laws that they implemented and live by the same laws that everybody else has to. Fireworks is one where I think we made a lot of mistakes on that one. But during my time in Lansing, we made a lot of tough decisions along with Governor Snyder, who showed, I think, incredible leadership on job creation and economic development. We eliminated the personal property tax. So a company like Wabasto is not going to have to pay personal property tax on this facility. We lowered the tax rates for all job creators and businesses. We implemented right to work, and we made a lot of other tough decisions that encouraged businesses to come to Michigan and consider Michigan as a place to settle. I don't believe Wabasto would be expanding in Plymouth Township if it wasn't for the decisions that we made in the legislature over the last 8 years. And I hope that they will continue to make sound decisions like that so that we can continue the growth and development that we have seen throughout Michigan, but especially in western Wayne County. All right, Bob?
We can come back to, at some point in the future, I would like to, revisit that issue around Woodlands. And I totally appreciate a balance between, private property rights and our desire to see business development. But right now, the penalty is not severe enough to deter people from just ignoring the township. And I think we need to probably take a look at that.
Yeah, I agree. Gary?
A couple of things since we've got a couple hours to go here. I had a great retention visit today with the state and the county at a company called Chemical Dynamics. They're over off of Beck and right behind Henry Ford. They're a full-service paint and coating company, and they're developing coatings such as UV and coil coatings. They're working with the Navy to develop a new kind of paint that stops all rust. And the staff was giving us demos that were just, water was blowing right off of these things. It was just totally amazing. But it's a company that, he said, we've been here for 15 years. We're expanding. Nobody's ever talked to us. He said, we met a guy named Richard one time, and he was walking to a different place. So okay, it worked out good. So that was a very good visit we had today. My second point, I'm going to go on record and saying I'm disappointed in the board packet. We're continuing to get changes at the very last minute. I take this very serious. I go through this doggone thing, with a fine-tooth comb. And I don't like coming in and getting changes at the last minute. I don't like getting missing pages. I don't like any of this stuff. And please, we're talking about procedural issues. This is another procedural issue that we're going to have to work on. Get the damn thing right before it comes to us. That's my beef. Sorry. Sorry if I get a little bit upset, but I spend a hell of a lot of time doing this.
Hey, Jerry, we used to have some software and maybe I don't know if we still have it, and or if maybe somebody needs training, because it was really, I think it really facilitated the assembly of the package, made it easier, because I think a lot of manual labor must go into these now.
Yeah, that software is no longer supported and working.
Oh.
And so it would cost us a lot of money to try to update that. With our new person that we've put on in the clerk's department is going to be very helpful in organizing this. And also, I would like to thank everybody who gave me good well wishes and prayers as I've been fighting a very aggressive cancer over the past couple of years. And I just completed some radiation treatment over the past 2 months. And maybe some of the issues with the board packet is because I was only around about half the time. So some of that falls on me, but I was very ill, and I'm still taking medication. So I certainly want to thank everyone for their consideration on that, and thank them for their well wishes and prayers. And there was a point in the recent past where I thought I was going to run again for clerk, and because of the good treatment that I received from U of M with surgery and radiation treatment and drug treatment, I am hopeful that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I can see through the forest, and everything's looking up in that respect. Thank you.
Okay, I'll admit, U of M does some good things from time to time.
I told Mr. Doyle tonight that he was appropriately dressed. So that he is a walking banner for the University of Michigan. So, all right, Mark.
Nothing here, thanks.
Jack.
When would it be reasonable to have some kind of report of these contract agreements where companies get a tax abatement and they have to submit reports? When would it be reasonable for us to kind of get a status report on where those are?
Thank you. And this is an issue that Chuck brought up a couple months ago. And it was on my to-do list, but of course, as I said, I've only been here part-time for the past couple of months, but it was noted when Chuck brought it up, and it's an important issue, and we're going to do that.
Didn't we gave the board a list of...
You gave a list of tax tribunal.
That was what you asked for.
But not tax
but not abatement.
There was only 3 tax tribunal pending cases on the list.
But Chuck has brought this issue up a couple months ago about they're supposed to deliver to us a letter annually. And so I had instructed people to do that, but I haven't been able to follow up on it because of my illness.
So what are you looking for? Just like a list of all the companies that
like
have
a
abatements
right
now?
We have all of the people who have IFTs are supposed to respond annually with a letter discussing what they have done for the community and the number of jobs they've provided in compliance with the IFT.
And the document we approved tonight says if they don't do that, then we can ask for it and they have to provide it within 30 days. I think that's what the contract said. So I guess in a sense it was sort of academic to me, the status of this, but when you've got an applicant come in that hasn't complied, quote unquote, with existing contract requirements, it's sort of the same idea of insisting on a homeowner to follow all the procedures to get a 6-foot fence. They have to jump through the hoops, they have to go to the ZBA or whatever. And so with a developer, with Wabasco, with whomever, they should be held to the same kinds of requirements. And I agree with the idea that we've seemingly all expressed interest in, which is let's develop something where there's some real teeth to this process so that we don't have clear cutting, we don't have scofflaws who just think that it's fine to get away with it. I'll pay you a certain amount of money and remedy the problem. So that's all. I don't want to impose an arbitrary date or ask for an arbitrary date, but just if there's a commitment to do that soon down the road, that's great. The other is, I hadn't thought of it till Mr. Heitman mentioned it, but we have defense contractors here in this township, and I wonder if there's some way of calling attention to that. I mean, that's part of our national defense. No knock on the auto industry. I mean, that's a very important employer and all these other employers. But to have defense industry contractors here in Plymouth Township, I think, is a significant thing that we should be proud of. And not sure, but perhaps you all could think, Mr. Heitman and Mr. Heise, you could think about how we could ballyhoo that issue or that attribute, because I think it's a very great thing for us here in this community. So.
Or they may want to be low-key for security reasons.
Well, it was funny
Well,
because I brought it up to them and said, I'm going to mention you at a meeting tonight. And he said, well, you know, I can't afford a marketing team. He said, basically, 3 of these lab guys do all my marketing, including me.
Yeah.
And he said, that's it.
So I think it's a good point. If they don't want attention called to them, that's one thing. But if they are amenable to it, then we could do it. Thanks.
We also have a lot of companies in the township that are part of the veterans hiring process through the state of Michigan. And I would hope that a company like Webasto could hook into that.
So you shouldn't mention your plutonium.
Are you done?
Are you all set, Jack?
Yeah.
With that comment, I'm definitely.
Okay, Chuck.
Can we receive the regular 35th District Court financial report? They put something out, is it once a month or once a quarter? Used to be, I don't remember.
We can get you, because it's not monthly. I know what we get from them is I think we get the monthly docket, caseload docket management report, and then we get the financials, I believe, quarterly, right? Because I get them, Mark gets them, Cindy Kushner gets them.
Because there's some real close financial scrutiny going on, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because this is a year where there's
Right.
a lot of financial hurdles, or I forgot what it was, had to do with the pension plan.
Right.
With legacy costs and how we're not getting, well, we might have to contribute money soon.
Well, no, well, I wouldn't go there. I mean, we are not, none of the communities are realizing any revenue, for lack of a better word, from the courts. None of the communities have committed to putting money into the court. Okay, that would be a whole new radical discussion. I mean, that's the thing that you want to avoid. So what we've done is we have said that any overage that we recognize for this year goes into paying the pension obligations of the court. And we've also mandated that the court pay more into OPEB and make other cuts as may be necessary. They just signed new labor agreements with their employees. I think they got like 2 and 2 or something like that, because they're financially, I mean, the court is really struggling right now. And between the policy meetings that we have with the court and the financial meetings that Cindy attends, we have really been clamping down on their operations.
All right.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, that's right, public comments. Anybody in the public? Sue, nothing? Oh, my gosh. All right, then I need a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Heitman.
I move we adjourn at 9:20.
Man, it's early.
Motion's made by Trustee Heitman, seconded by Trustee Dempsey. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. We are